So once again, yes, thanks a lot for coming. First of all, I'd like to welcome you to this Artificial Intelligence for Renewable Energy Technologies workshop. I want to first of all thank a few people. Before we actually begin the workshop, first, I want to thank the AI Institute, which has provided us this opportunity to, also financially supported us to organize this workshop here. Just a very brief background about this. So Bill received his Bachelor of Science in Electrical and Computer Engineering from Ben-Gurion University of the Negev in Spain in 2005, and graduated with summa cum laude. Then he was also awarded his PhD by UNSW from School of Photovoltaic and Renewable Energy Engineering in March 2011. He was a research fellow at the Solar Energy Research Institute of Singapore between 2011 and 2014, where his research focused on characterization of silicon vapors and solar cells using photoluminescence, and on the development of high-efficiency industrial solar cells. In 2014, he was awarded the UNSW Vice Chancellor's Research Fellowship, and in 2015, he received the ARC TECRA Award. Currently, he is a professor leading a research group in ACDC Research Group, very nice name, that tries to save the world. Okay, so Zim, the floor is all yours.
Thank you so much for the introduction. As you understood, I'm coming from the renewable side, not from the machine learning side, although I will try if there is a difficult question, but if not, this list of 4 authors is the machine learning expert. So that's my team. The one that is highlighted is the PhD student. We have 2 postdocs here, Priya and Brendan. Boston is a professor in Spring, and Sonia is a legend here in computer science. And so it's collaboration. A lot of the work is collaboration between Spring School of Photovoltaic and computer science. And as discussed, the group is ACDC, and we really try to save the world. So why do we need to save the world? So why do we need to save the world? Because it's not in good shape. So this one is the latest IPCC report. That's the section that discusses Australia. So that it will not surprise you that temperature in Australia increased. So we are already in plus 1.4. We have many more heat waves. Sea level rose much faster than what expected. If you like snowboarding like me, probably this year is maybe will be the last season, because the expectation is that there will not be too many snow anymore in Australia. We have a lot of extreme fire, like fire weather, heavy rainfalls, and on the how it's looking on the map, so we can see that temperature is really increased. The extreme rainfall, like a lot of water in short time, is increasing. Summary, we are not in good shape, and it seems like that if we not do something fast, the future is quite dark. Yeah? But there is some hope, and this hope, I believe, is photovoltaic or renewable. What I show you here is something that we call the learning curve. It's something that is not related only for PV, it's related to every technology. We plot the price of something as function of like the product, how much we produce of it. And you can see that for PV, we have like 2 slopes, and they're quite sharp. This one is 2006, and I started my PhD here, so I will take claim that this faster learning curve is because of my PhD. But you can see that in general, PV price dropped by more than 1,000 times in the last 45 years. We shift much more. And when I started my PhD again, 2006, the $1 per watt was like a magic number. But if we will reach that, really, that will be amazing. As you can see, we now reached the 10 cents per watt. So it's much better than what everyone expected not too long ago. And the future is even brighter. So we speak about the 0.1 that now everyone speaks about, $0.1 per watt. And the prediction will happen when we will reach shipment of something like 2 terawatt. So when that will happen, and you can see, so that's how much PV we install per year, and that's a year. And again, you can see the very, very fast increase. And you can see that the prediction is that very soon, right? So that's 2024. So in the next 2 or 3 years, we will reach this magic number. And the nice with PV is that we always surprise for better. So every time that there is prediction on reduction of cost or shipment, we do that in much faster rate. That's how PV plants look like today. They're huge. Okay? If people are familiar with the Sun Cable project, Sun Cable is a company here in Australia that plans to build a huge PV plant in the North Territory and transfer the energy to Singapore. And so 25% of the electricity of Singapore will come from DC line that will come from Australia. That's the size of the project. And it shows that we're already doing quite well. Right? So now I change a bit. So it's electricity price. Yeah, it's not the power. It's electricity price is function of here, and we look here on what is the lowest offer and what is the average. So you can see the price here of the more conventional one, so gas, oil, hydro, and you can see that PV, the red one, is already in quite ridiculous price. So PV now is the cheapest form of energy in the history of humankind. So we're already the cheapest one. But to overcome the challenges, we need to make it even cheaper. So again, if people will ask you, is PV something for the future? No, it's already in the present the cheapest. So summary until now, we need to save the world. PV need and should to be the solution. But the situation is so bad that we need some help. Yeah? And that's what we try to do here. We try to bring AI to help us. So before that, I need to give you some background about the inspection of solar cells, because that's what I need to put in this one. So first we need to make sure, because it's electricity, so we need to make sure that the quality and the reliability of what we build is in the standard of electricity power plant. And we need to inspect every solar cells that we make, okay? And that's billions per year. Now we need to do that with different size. So there is no one size or one structure for solar cell. So we need to adjust according to the specific product. We make them much better. So much better means higher voltage. And why this one is tricky? Because higher voltage usually come with high capacitance. And that means that usually measurement is slower. But that's the opposite of what we want. We want to make it faster. And the most important one is we saw that the price of PV is so cheap already. Every small change will increase the price. Yeah? So we're not in the area that, like in the past, the PV price was so expensive that if you had something small, it's looking insignificant. Now, when we speak about cents, every portion of the cents become important. We need to do that with no additional cost, or even better if we can save. So the very common method to measure the quality of solar cells is to measure the current in the voltage. And we do that with something that looks like that. We call it IV tester. We have probe, we touch, connect the solar cells, and we measure the performance. At the end, we want to produce electricity. So voltage and current is very important for me. And again, we do that for something like more than 30 million per year. Solar cells. Every solar cells production line will have that ability. The main parameters, like I said, voltage, current, something that we call fill factor. It's about how good is the curve, and efficiency. But that's the metrics that we measure the quality of our solar cells. What is the efficiency? How much power it's receiving and how much power it's producing. And the reason that we have this IV tester is two. First is like to filter out the bad solar cells. Okay? And that's easy, like quality control. The second one is we want to bring them according to quality. And why we want to do that, that's, I will take you to the model. So we spoke until now on PV cells, but as you know, when you look on the rooftop, we speak about PV panel or PV modules. the same thing, and I will probably confuse between the two, but panel and module. And to make them, we take solar cells and we connect them in series. Okay? So we connect them to add the voltages because usually we need higher voltage. But to complete this one, we have the solar cells, we protect them with encapsulated, that it's EVA, just to make sure that they last for 25 years. We use glass and backsheet of glass, and we frame them. And that's this panel that you see on the rooftop or in the plan that I showed the photo before. The problem is that when you connect something in series, it means that you force that the current will be the same. And that means that if here you have 60 or 72 or 144 cells, the current will be according to the growth. So if you have like, let's say in the 61, 59, very good with higher current, but you put one that limit the current, you just lose the power. What solar cells company is doing is they try to bin them, to bin the cells according to the quality, and then make this panel according to the beams. If you do it wrong, you just lose power. When you lose power, it just means that you lose money. So again, we use IV measurement, right? Current voltage measurement to beam the solar cell and to control the reflective. So that's one aspect of background that I needed to have. The second one is something that's called luminescence imaging. So luminescence is emission without change of temperature. It's something that is very familiar in different aspects. In semiconductor, it's something that's related to radiative recombination. It's very similar to X-ray, but it's not. I wanted to use this cartoon, so I said X-ray. Yeah? But the idea is that you see feature that you will not see often. Yeah? So that's, for example, here an image of solar cells. So for females that are not familiar with solar cells, that's something like 16, 20 dark area in this image is low quality region. And that's again, not something that you will see. Like when you will look on these solar cells, everything will look very uniform. The lines that you see here, that's fingers, that's metal lines that collect the current. The bus bar is the one that connects cell to cell. You can see that according to that, these areas here is problematic. So what we, in this project, what we try to see is like, can we replace IV measurement with images? And that's a question that is very challenging because IV is a bit like holy book. It's like religion in PV companies. Yeah? Everyone measure that, everyone look on the tester. There is a lot of standard that related to how you measure that. It's a bit like to take the holy book from any religion and say, oh, don't use that anymore. Yeah? So it's challenging. But we had good reason why we thought that it will be a good idea to try to leave IV aside, or at least not to use them on everything. First, because we moved to thinner wafer. So this wafer, this solar cells is 150 micron. And we want to make them even thinner. We want 100 micron, just because we want to save cost. So less material, less cost. But when we need to contact them, of course, that we can break them. And the breakage range will increase when we make it. We also make our solar cells now with many more different structures. So companies that in the past will produce something for a few years the same, now they change every 6 months. And that means that you need to change your contact scheme every 6 months, every year. So that's the other aspect is we want this year to measure 10,000 cells per hour. Yeah? Roughly, that's 3 cells per second. So we want to measure very fast. Now, IV tester is limited today to 4,000. That means that you need more cells. So that means, again, you need to increase the cost. And what we said, we just want to reduce it. We also want to use, there is like different structure that it's half cell or quarter cell. There is reason why you want to make, to cut them in some stage. And that's mean again, that you need more IV. And they're expensive. They're expensive because you need to buy them according to standard. You need to hire a team that will just make sure that all of them operate according to the standard. So its maintenance of IV tester is quite expensive. So that luminescence images, these images that I showed you before that look like X-ray, is a good idea. First, because they're already quite popular in production lines. So this year it's roughly 50%, but you can see that we expect that in the next few years it's going to increase to 80%. And I must say that every PV company that I visit have already luminescent images. They are much faster, and they can be even faster because this method is contactless, so you don't really need to touch the solar cell. So it's a bit like your image in the phone that you take. But okay, you need a bit different camera, but the idea is that you don't need to contact it. And we thought also that there is other defects or other feature that we see where is the defect that maybe can be useful. So the first step is to replace IV measurement, but the second one was, can we get something that is more? So the question is, can this image learn what the IV is doing? Okay? Can we take X-ray of person and predict what is the blood pressure? That's roughly. Okay? So we try to take one image and predict on something else that's related to the health. All right. So we asked one of our partners to share with us 20,000 measurements. So it's IV measurement, but also the luminescence images that they collect in their production. So we push to do something that is already with the industry level, like without the step to do development here in the labs and the unions and try to upscale that. So we jumped to the deep water and just asked them to give us exactly what they collect and wanted to see if we can work with that. Efficiency of this production line that is R&D was a bit wider than what you expect. So that's the story. And really, sorry, not really like that. Everything below 20% is affected, and we had very tiny beans of 0.2% in the efficiency. It's a bit from some of the companies, but we wanted to make sure that we match to the standard, at the highest standard. Now we'll start to speak with machine learning terms, and just to make the organizer happy. So we use CNN, and we ask the CNN first to look at the image and then classify to which beam it's need to go. Yeah? So based on the image, to classify that according to the beams that the IV tester will beam them in the company. Of course, that we did the split between training and validation, and that's the result of the confusion method. Okay? So in perfect world, everything will be on this line. We are not in perfect world, but we was very happy and impressed by the fact that at least the rejected, so as you remember, there was two tasks. First, to catch the rejected cell, and the second one to be corrected. The percentage for the rejected cell was quite okay, at least for the first task with only 20,000 images that was maybe. We were not too happy with the accuracy to put in the same beam, but we was happy with the fact that the mistake was quite small. So it's mean that it was just in the narrow, like in the neighbor beam. That's what we indicated. So when we thought, okay, maybe what we can do is like two steps. One is focus on the rejection, the first task, and then use regression to try to predict the efficiency and then to beam it according to that. Now we use the fact that we already learned, the CNN learned quite a lot of stuff and features. So we extract the feature vector and now we use that as input to the request. So now we have first step, that is the CNN to detect the rejection. We identify the important features and use them as input to the machine learning to predict the efficiency. Now we can look at the results. So now in regression, we have continuous values, and you can see that again, predicted efficiency as function of measured one. In perfect world, everything will be on the y equal x. The color is green is in the correct beam, blue is neighborhood, and red is a bit far. And again, what you can see is that 95% of them was in either the beam or the narrow beam. And that was something that already generated interest in our industry partner, because that was much better than what they expected from just to take images. But the question was, how much money they will lose if they move to our application? So that's all the solar cells that we measured. That's the beam, if it's based on the IV measurement, that's our beam. And the only way to decide which one is better, what is the difference between them, was to select for each beam and say, okay, let's randomly select 60 cells. We connect them to module. We simulate with electrical package what will be the current, and then we can calculate what will be the performance of this module. So, and we can do that with either with being according to IV tester or with being according to what we call the machine learning. And if we do that 1,000 times, then we can produce something like that. So this figure look on the losses according to the difference in the current. So less important exactly what does it mean, but of course, higher value means that there is a lot of mismatch, and that's not what we want. If you can see that the two curves is very close one to each other, and if we look at the values, if you build it according to the standard method, you have like mismatch of 120 milliwatt for 100 modules, so 0.03. In the average, the machine learning did almost the same, 0.04. And in the worst case scenario from these 1,000 cases, it was 0.1. So when we came back with that to the industry partner, that was like, okay, that's maybe something that we can consider, because this one is something that is, it's not in any calculation of losses in the one. That's something that is like in the error of IV tester. Now, the nice with this approach was that, as if you remember, we spoke about something that is 5 busbars and solar cells with very specific structure. So we wanted to see what happened if we just change the solar cell. So this solar cell has more busbar. Okay? So from the machine learning approach, we put image that look different. Now, we assume that maybe if it's smart machine learning, they will understand that this one is busbar and you need to treat that in a different way. But it's different structure. It's not something that was seen before. And what we show here is that transfer learning means that we didn't train it at all. We just put these images and ask predict the efficiency. You can see that it's doing quite well. There is not enough data just because our partner just shift to this non-busbar. So not too many, but the result is quite good. Again, I can see. If you do just fine tuning, take a small amount of that and retrain the models, you can see that you get much better results. So it was quite impressive that the algorithm that was developed is quite robust to changes in this. The other approach, we said that it's become common to cut the cells in some stage to half. When you cut cell to half, you halve the current. If you halve the current, it's I squared to the losses. So you reduce the losses by factor 4. So that's the reason why we cut it. And as you can see, again, much less result, but again, very nice prediction. So maybe just to summarize that was enough result for one of the partners to shift to this method. So this project started 3 years ago. And in the last 6 months, we have one partner, one of the biggest companies in China, that shift to IV from completely only IV measurement to hybrid mode of IV and imaging. And the idea is, of course, that they want to gain some confidence with that before they shift. But then the question is like, can we do more? Because we said the images has more knowledge or more information than just IV measurement. So what we would wonder is, can we understand by the defect that we see in the image on how much the efficiency changes? Or can we look on the image and say, okay, if you solve this problem, that will be the goal. Maybe to explain that, let's say that that's the image, and as you are now all of you expert in images, you know that these 3 or 4 features, that's the loss of. So this one is some defect that happened during the production of the solar cell. Solar cells, the efficiency was quite low. Yes, it was in the tail, the lower. And then the question was, let's say that in some way I can solve this problem. So what will happen to the efficiency? What will be the increase? It will increase to this point, and this point, and this point. It's important to know because then the company can say, okay, if I have 4 different problems, which one I need to target first? And is it worth for me to spend money to solve that? Because if it still will not change something, maybe there's no point to do it. So the method that we use is, okay, we know how to predict efficiency. I hope that I can do it in 20 minutes, what I say. Now we can just define algorithms that identify the fault, yeah, find the defect. Now we use GAN. Yeah? So GAN is a bit like magic, for me at least. Machine learning people probably know. But the idea was, let's remove the defects from the image, yeah? Just erase that. And then use GAN to fill this image. And now we can run it again with our algorithm and see what will be the efficiency change. So in some way, we now can predict the gain in efficiency. So, let's say that we have these solar cells and we run it by our modeling and it's okay, that's 22.6. Now we can identify the defects, remove them, run it by GAN and create image that has these solar cells will look without this defect. Run it again by the machine learning. And the difference here is what we lost because of the defects. Now we can go to the company and say, look, improve this one because that's 0.5% in your efficiency. And that's huge for companies. They're like, changes of 0.1 is something that you report in journal papers. 0.5 is something you put quite impressive. Now the question is like, how good the GAN will fill the background. So, fake news is really bad, but fake PL images is not too bad. So one is fake and one is real. The truth is that I don't know who is which, but as you can see, it's quite identical. Okay? And one was just generated by GAN. Assume that it's this one. But I assume that my student will say that I did it wrong. But one of them, I think this one was just generated by GAN. The other one is real. So the first thing that we did is just wanted to convince ourselves that the GAN is really make a good job. So the way that we did it, we took original image, remove this part, run it by GAN and look on the image. So visually they look very similar, but we can just check it with our algorithm. So that's what was measured with the IV tester. This one was predicted with our machine learning algorithm. And again, you see that like the efficiency is exactly the same distribution, the same average. So machine learning really know how to predict the efficiency better. But that's the GAN, that's the images that was run by GAN and back, and you can see it change. So we was quite convinced that the GAN learn how to fill the image, not as a perfect image, but in something that is indistinguished. Like if you look on this area, you don't really understand that this area was just built by GAN, same area too. So everything is like, okay, but how you test it? How you know if you remove defects, how much it will improve? So what we did the opposite. So we spoke with our industry partner, and what we asked them is, take one of the solar cells, not only one, take a lot of them, measure the efficiency, then go and create the damage. So take diamond paint and scratch the cell in order to reduce the efficiency. And we run it also with our CNN, and you can see that it's like similar efficiencies. Then we remove and generate again. So in perfect world, this image and this image will be exactly the same. And what you can see is that it's very similar. So that was the loss that really was created by this defect. So this defect created loss efficiency of 0.23, and we predict 0.22. It's almost identical in our we then ask them, okay, can you do that twice? So 2 defects. And again, you can see that the efficiency that was predicted is exactly the efficiency that was. So now it's not only that we replace IV tester, it gives them opportunity to do something new, something that they didn't think that they can do before. So now you can analyze each of the defects and decide what do you need to do first. So summary until now, being like you can replace IV tester with just images. So back to you can take X-ray and predict the blood pressure of someone. You can also use GAN to get something that is much more than. I'm not sure how is the time. 10 more minutes. Oh, more than what I expected. Okay. So I will try to finish fast so we'll do some discussion. But I just wanted to speak about other projects, and that will be much faster, just to give some ideas on other things that we use machine learning. So luminescence images is important, as you understood. My background before I started anything about machine learning was to work on luminescence images. But images, like any image, is influenced by noise. And one of this, like if you want to take image in very short exposure, you increase the noise. But as we said, we want to increase everything. So if there is method to denoise images, that would be great if you can improve the resolution, because then you can see features that are smaller and decouple information. So I will show these two applications in this slide. Recycling of PV panels become very important because we produce so many of them. We need to think that in 20 and 25 years, we will need to find solutions. So we have now a project with Sydney-based company, PV Industries. And the idea is, can we create automated decision-making on recycling? So you take image of module and the algorithm tell you, okay, keep it or recycle that or try to sell it as a second image. Just got 5 million from Arena to develop machine learning that check the health of utility scale PV plants. So the idea is machine learning that read the data that is anyway read by, collected by the owners and identify, classify, and then predicts problem in the future. And then again, everyone collect data, and I assume that you do that as well, but when do you need to do action? When do you need to say, okay, now it's the point in time that I need to do something, yeah? For example, if you measure efficiency in your production line, when do you need to say, okay, now I need to stop the production line and I need to go to find the problem? When you visit them, you find that it's always, okay, let's wait for the next data point and then the next data point. So automated decision-making is something that at least PV industry is something that we want. We help the company to optimize the production line. And why? Because PV is something that needs to work in the next 25 to 30 years. So everything that can predict the future will be great. It's correct in any place, yeah? Like we all, it's really great to predict the future, but for PV it's important. So maybe just a few examples. So that's the image that we took in long exposure time, very short exposure time. So meaning that you can measure many more. You can see it's very noisy, like that's the zoom in. That's machine learning that was take this image and just make that so denoise. The algorithm here, like it's something that probably in other field was used, but that was the first use for PV. Other one is assuming that we measure only 4 points, and that's really measurement. I will not explain too much on the measurement, but this measurement is you try to accelerate defects. Yeah, so you put the module in 85 degrees, 85% humidity, and you try to accelerate that short time will be like what it will feel 25 years in the field. That's the first few measurement, and we develop algorithms on few more images or few more points and predict the behavior. So that's prediction of the behavior, and that's the measurement that was after. So as you can see, it's not too bad in predict how it will behave. In this case, we use 200 hours to predict how it will behave after 1400 hours. The other aspect is this image contain, I didn't speak about that too much, but images like that contain two information points. With very data, but it's include knowledge about something that's related to the voltage and something that's related to the resistance. So we didn't speak about that, but it's captured these two parameters. And the question was, can we take this image and separate these two information? So what the student here did is she modeled, she simulated with feature here like this and this, that's related to the voltage, and this is related to the series resistance. And she trained the machine learning to just decouple the images. So this one is now only recombination, only voltage related problem, and that's only series resistance. And that's open new avenue to what you can do with feature like that, because now you can separate not only to say that there is a problem and maybe what is the problem, you can also very easily create maps that maps them across the image. So now I think, so PV, I hope that I convince you, PV is not the future, it's the present. If you don't have or start to use it. That's the only way that we, okay, so there's two ways to save this planet. One is everyone become vegetarian. I am, can see that. If not, PV, yeah? That's and there is a lot of way to collaborate to save this planet. Everyone has different set of skills. And the only way that we can do that is like if we combine these skills together to do something that is bigger than. That's it. Questions?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Viv. Yeah, anyone has any questions? Yes, you do.
I use it.
Thank you, Viv, for your presentation. Actually, when I many wonder about our model, but when we want to for commercialization, then uncertainty of the model that developed is important. So my question is, have you tried to do that uncertainty of the classifier that you use? Or do you have any plan for that one? And the second question is, I'm not sure from the research part that the different defects, like if that defects are scattered or they are just not in specific areas of the cell, is it different in the efficiency that predicting on that cell or not? And if yes, then what can some approach like segmentation using the UNSW code to more accurately segment actually or segment these cells, and instead of predicting it to a binary classifier and predict the some regressive relationship in the class that cell falling and the.
So great question. First, yes, uncertainty is important. So this one was one of the approach that we use. So we run it a lot of time on the different split and see what is the difference. That was only one example, of course, that we did many of them in order to see what is the sensitivity of our to different data sets and what is the sensitivity of the IV. We need to remember also that like we look on our approach, okay, what is the sensitivity in the machine learning? But anyone that did electrical measurement of voltage and current, you know that there is uncertainties there. So this one raised interesting discussion with our client because then we understood that, like the uncertainty sometimes in the IV measurement maybe will be even higher than what on the image-based. Just because in the image-based one, when you don't need to contact the cell, you avoid other problems like contact resistance and resistance in the cable. So this one is interesting because it can be that the machine learning approach will be even more accurate than what now is the baseline because that's the idea. But for your question, yes, we do quite a lot of different tests to evaluate the sensitivity. The second question was about the difference, and I was not sure if you speak about the like rejected solar cells here. So the rejection that work now in production line is just based on the IV measurement. So they don't know what is the feature. So everything that below these efficiencies, and efficiency is metrics that's related to voltage, current, and fill factor and other parameters. But it can be that like the voltage is in the range, but current is low, and that's means that the efficiency will be low. So solar cells today, the company is quite conservative on that. Everything below the efficiencies, they don't want to take the risk. There is too much warranty risk with them. Now that we move to image-based one, and we can see the feature, yes, so your ideas can be playable. You can look on that and say, look, maybe that's something that we can cluster in a different way. That's maybe something that we can treat. Maybe what you think that is a problem, it's not a problem. Customers today is so spoiled that it can be that the PV module efficiency is high, but because when you look on that on the roof, you can see that they are bluish. Right? That's because of the anti-reflection. So today, there is another rejection that it's on the color because customers don't like if the color changes a bit. Yeah? So sometimes it's not even related to the quality, it's just related to the selling. Other questions? Yes.
Yep. You mentioned before that the efficiency based on how the production line change.
Sorry, on that.
You mentioned before that how efficiency changes by the production line.
Yes. Yeah.
Could you just explain how that?
So that's not related to this one, but what we develop is algorithm that. So when you make solar cells, you have a lot of machines with different settings. So it's a bit like, let's say, if you cook noodles, so you have like different steps and what is the condition that you put. So we develop algorithms that collect all the information from the different machines. What is the setting, and based on that, predict what will be the efficiency. And then you can run different algorithms to try to optimize that. So to develop new recipe for, let's say, the solar cells, so the noodle, that is not something that was tested. We have one paper that is based on simulation, but we have now a small project with company on specific, only one step in production. And so just 10 different parameters and how we can optimize it.
Any other questions?
Dave, I have a very simple question. How do you think
Simple question is the most difficult one usually. Yes.
Maybe not. How do you think about the picture of ChatGPT and the application of ChatGPT and other language-based artificial intelligence methods in the research, your research?
I assume that that's not related only for PV, but I assume that my answer will be good as anyone else. First, it's something that we still need to learn.
Yes.
It's quite clear that some of the algorithm ChatGPT can do that maybe faster than my postdoc or my PhD student, not because they are great, it's just that it's doing that very fast. So I think that, yeah, there will be a lot of discussion, like in some stage, if, who needs to write the code? Maybe you just need to explain what you need to do and the code will come.
Yes, that's right.
In perfect world, yes. Yeah, I'm not sure if perfect world. In scary world, yeah, it's the machine learning will decide what you need to improve and improve that and cycle like that.
Yeah. Any other questions? A lot of questions. So maybe we'll go for 2 questions. Yeah, go for it.
Hey.
So I have 2 questions. The first one is for so I'm thinking that whether based on how the AI has increased the sample size, maybe increase the accuracy. So whether it's also useful for impede classification to increase the sample size to get a higher accuracy. So that is hopefully meaningful for us. Use like more advanced algorithm like this formal-based so maybe increase the transfer learning of that. So probably like most people maybe interact more accurately. So the second thing is that I mean think about like gas also the diffusion model, also and very good models in generation of the images. So whether you also think about like have a trial model to use the skill gas and that's
so maybe just because I assume there's a one very fast answer. I think that, yeah, like you can always go to more advanced model and probably, like while speaking, probably there is any publication on something that makes it better. The question is, what do you need? If you ask company, like, do you need something that is more accurate than that? Companies will say no. So the question is like, do you need to develop something that gives something that they don't need? Yeah, like, even something like that, it's really in the uncertainty of every measurement. So it's always good to go to more advanced models, but the question is like, do you need that? And what will be the price in time or complexity? The second question was on GAN, I think. But I don't remember exactly what was the point. So maybe let's chat on that after. And then,
Yeah, I think we have a break after the second talk. So there'll be a lot of time for you to ask very deep questions. So if you can hold your enthusiasm till then, that would be great. Yeah, so I hope that's okay with you. So with that note, anything else you want to add?
No, if you have any idea for collaboration, I'm the only Ziv at UNSW, very easy to find the email, ZIV, UNSW, that's the only one. So just send email, it will be great to collaborate.
Awesome. Yeah. So thanks a lot, Ziv. Again,